श्री कृष्णचंद्र भगवान की जय। सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। जय जय गोविंद जय हरि गोविंद।
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 जय
Hari Om. Glad that you're all here. Good to see all of you. First and foremost, a very good, happy Deepavali to all of you. Yes, I know it is tomorrow, but since we will not be meeting tomorrow, so therefore, happy Deepavali to all of you. I see at least the two of you in two good traditional clothing. That's good to see. One is competing with me. So the Deepavali celebration usually is 5 days. It starts on the 13th day of the moon. Today is the 14th day. So yesterday was Dhanteras. Dhanvantari was born, and or he expressed himself bringing the Amrita Kalasha, and he is also the father of all medicinal knowledge which he gave to Ashwini Kumaras, and from Ashwini Kumaras to various sages and saints, prominently Charaka, Sushruta, and Vagbhatta. and that is how we got the knowledge of Ayurveda. Today is Naraka Chaturdashi, and Naraka Chaturdashi is a celebration where we have Narakasura vanquished by Bhagwan Sri Krishna and Satyabhama. Yes, our women were not just empowered, that they were purely powerful, that they were also on the battlefields. This particular episode, Narakasura was a tyrant and he was enough bothering various dharmic sabha, dharmic institutions, gurukulas, and tapasthalis. So when Bhagwan decided his time was done, but he could not kill him himself. He had to take the support of Bhudevi, whose very avatar is Satyabhama. Because Narakasura had a boon that when he was born from Bhudevi, he had asked the boon from Bhudevi that she should be the one that should end him, not anybody else. A strange request, but that's what he requested. So Satyabhama was the one who was in that battle and vanquished Narakasura. As a dying wish, Narakasura asks that he be remembered by the people, and therefore this day, the 14th day, is celebrated as Naraka Chaturdashi. Then tomorrow is Deepavali. So happy Deepavali. And Deepavali is the time when Bhagwan Sri Ramchandra ji finally arrives back into Ayodhya. On Vijayadashami, he had vanquished Ravana, and today is the day when he arrives into Ayodhya along with the entire Vanar Sena and Vanar Sena's family, which he en route picked up from Kishkinda. So he arrived late, and people of Ayodhya were quite intelligent that they lit up the whole Ayodhya with lamps. It's like the landing strip that was well lit for the flight to land, and they all arrived into Ayodhya, and therefore firecrackers and a lot of puja celebration. So Siyavar Ramachandra ki Jai. Then it is also Lakshmi Puja on that day, and the next day, the Pratipada, is also Bali Padyami, as well as the new year for the Gujarati community. So to all the Gujarati community out there, solely represented by Naya, so happy new year, Nav Varsh Shubh Kamana to all of you. And the next day, Dvitiya, is Bhai Dooj, which is the second day, where Rakhi is the time when we celebrate the sister tying and seeking the protection of the brother. Here, the brother does the reverse, and that is the tradition. And a day after that, the Tritiya, is when there is Govardhana Puja, that Bhagwan Sri Krishna first time started worshipping Govardhana Parvat, the mountain of Govardhana that he had lifted on his pinky, and he worshipped Govardhan Parvat, and since that day that tradition has also been added in. So 5 days of Deepavali, may it bring joy, prosperity, peace, tranquility, and strength in all of us, and may we share that abundantly with everybody. All friends, family, and the loved ones, may you share it abundantly. Now, the second part before I go into the question answers is not this Sunday, but the last Sunday, I released a video informing all of you all that I would be relocating back to India. And this has been a wait for almost 20 years. In the Hindi movie industry, a very old movie is called 20 Saal Baad. It is a scary movie. My experience of this 20 years has not been scary. It has been very fruitful, very beneficial. A lot of things that were learnt and shared. Well, finally, my request was approved, and it is by next year, May, end of May, is when I will be relocating back into India. So the time is decided, me going is decided. Where will I be going to is not yet decided, and whenever it gets decided, I will share that with all of you. I'm sure this whole self unfoldment thing will come to a conclusion pretty shortly, and then we'll have a different format. We will start it in a different way, live from Saket. So hopefully there will be live participants from Dallas Fort Worth area into Saket, and that will be exchanged through Zoom onto YouTube as well. So whenever that happens. So that's about my announcing of what I have, and yes, it will be a new chapter. I look forward for it. Hopefully we'll be in touch, in connection, even after I shift, and when I have programs there or yatras there, I'll send you an invite if you can join in. So the two parts are done. We will start with the prayer invocation and then get into the question answers. Sadly though, we have only 2 questions offered or brought in, and beyond that we don't have. So let us go into those 2 questions after the invocation, and then let's play it by the ear. So let's begin. Please turn your videos on if you can. I'd appreciate it. ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. So the first few set of questions, or the only few set of questions that we have, are from Kartika. So if you can admit Kartika in as a co-host, not co-host, sorry, share the spotlight. Oh,
हरिओम स्वामी जी.
हरिओम. कैसे हो?
अच्छी हूँ. आपको और आप सबको हैप्पी दीपावली.
Happy Deepavali to you too. Look good in Indian attire.
Thank you. We don't get the opportunity that much, so make the use of it when we do.
Nobody stops you from it.
True.
But nonetheless, good to see you.
Good to see you.
So let's jump into the question. During the satsang, Swamiji explained the concept of Vairagya through the banana peel. In the case of banana peel, society and I have both similar views regarding the importance of banana peel. How do you train your mind to practice Vairagya towards an object or an idea when the society may give it importance, but you want to practice mental and physical detachment from it? Whatever is the value that has been given to the material world, it all boils down to 5 elements. What is the nature of this? Anything that is a result of these 5 elements, that they do not stay permanently in that same condition, position, or equivalence for a long period, and they immediately morph, and that metamorphosis is inevitable. That change is inevitable. When we are attached to a particular thing for its form, for its relevance, for its utility, for its purposefulness, we are looking forward for its continuity as well. But when that doesn't continue, it will be us who will be at loss of various levels, where we are inviting miseries and agitations for a long term. It is from that standpoint that there is a constant transitory nature of this material world that has to be remembered. And for that reason, we say, once you know that it is not something which is permanent, it's not like we are trying to avoid it. It is not like we are trying to run away from it. We know its transitory nature, and when it comes, it is welcomed. When it leaves, we bid farewell without having any agitations in our mind. See, in Bhaja Govindam itself, in the second shloka, Adi Shankaracharya ji says, Vittam tena vinodaya chittam. Wealth is also transitory in nature, but you know how to cherish the moments where you have put the effort, you have earned it, your family is benefiting from it. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the moment also. But knowing very well that it is not supposed to be clinged on to with a sense of permanency. When it leaves, bid it farewell, and bid it farewell maturedly. That is the sense of Vairagya. So yes, banana peel, that is for the immediate impactfulness of it to be remembered. That even if you were, oh, kya tha, oh, why something, oh, banana peel wala. So you will remember that. So that is about the first question. You got it? Any questions on that?
No, Swamiji.
Good. Now the second one is, when one is initially trying to practice detachment from an object or idea, there may be a period of frustration due to our mind having conflicting ideas about the correct relationship to that object or idea. How should an individual handle oneself during this period of frustration? Initially, when we are practicing detachment, the assumption that the earlier pattern of attachment to that object or idea, the detachment is not a result of, physically trying to close your eyes or shut your ears or shut your mouth or shut anything else. That is not the idea. And if there is an intensity towards that object or idea and we are trying to shut it down, there will be a frustrated environment. You want to rebel against it. Sometimes we end up rebelling against our own self. That's when we kick ourselves the hardest. You beat yourself and you become not just a critique of yourself, but you start despising yourself. So that is what we end up becoming. But here, the idea of very detachment is born from dispassion, and dispassion is a result of viveka,
Mm.
a clear understanding. Conviction is not a forced environment. Conviction is the very result of clarity in our understanding. Without that clarity and understanding, if we force a conviction onto us, we will revolt against it. See, when the parent takes a time to sit down with the kid, explain as to why something is good or not good, why something is to be practiced and or why something is not to be practiced, and the explanation is clearly given, the child understands it. Now the frustration is knowing that the child cannot do what he was doing.
Mm.
But then the understanding has to not just be at the level of viveka, but now it has to crystallize into a conviction. So that period when it is understood intellectually, appreciated, but yet not crystallized in our conviction, that it starts guiding our thought, word, and deed. It is at that time where we have to be watchful, careful, and investigate into our own patterns of actions. This is called being vigilant. So the moment we start becoming vigilant, the frustration level goes down. The moment we see ourselves non-vigilant, meaning we are not being awareful of, you are not being conscious of, you're taking it, either you have taken it for granted or taken it very lightly.
Mm.
So you don't pay attention to it. But when we investigate into it, when we be vigilant about it, that is when we can catch it before it becomes a regular pattern. Initially, it will happen that you have already executed it and your anger or whatever it is, that pattern is already expressed, but you recognize it after the fact. Then, while you are expressing it, you tend to recognize it. Then comes a situation where it is all bubbling up and you recognize it and you know what will happen. Therefore, you apply yourself at that point. Even before it starts to bubble, you see the environment, you know how to handle it, therefore you channelize it better. Now here, once you learn this trick, that you know how to channelize it and you are very, very astute about it, if not used selflessly constantly, then there is a margin of error where we can start becoming manipulative, because you are already observant and you start moving parts. But if it is for a selfish purpose, not for a higher cause, not for a better cause, not for something uniquely great benefiting everyone around, and it is for your own means, for your own selfish purposes, then it starts becoming manipulative. So one has to be very, very careful of observing what is the intent behind it as well, the purposefulness of it as well.
Mm.
So that is where I think I would stop. I have given 2 or 3 pointers extra more than what you have asked, but it gives a comprehensive idea. इस पे कोई सवाल?
Uh, yes, actually. So, like, when you explain the progression that, sometimes when you're going through this process, sometimes you realize, like, after the action has already been completed, and then once you get better, you'll recognize, the point is to recognize even before the action, has taken place. So, I guess, how do you, I guess, compose yourself if maybe sometimes you've gotten to the point for the most part that you recognize it even before it happens, but then there's 1 or 2 times that, okay, like maybe you slip and maybe you kind of see yourself going back towards the old habits. How do you control yourself and get away from that, going back to like old habits?
First and foremost, don't beat yourself. It's a process of learning, recognizing, growing. Second, commit to yourself to not repeat the pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you take yourself very lightly. So therefore, when we tie a raksha on our hand, when we take a sankalpa, sit down to do a particular anusthana or something, that initially you would want to get out or break, or you feel constrained. Then you have taken that nishtha, so you are educating yourself again and again to that pattern, saying at least finish it. Okay, that is one. Second is, your goals should be into doables. It should not be like something larger than achievable, and then start feeling sorry about, oh my god, I am not able to, oh my god, I am not able to. Break it down into doables and accomplish each doable. You will find yourself confident in yourself as well as into the process and its application. Otherwise, you lose hope in yourself as well as the process, and then end up saying, oh yeah, I have tried it, been there, done that, it doesn't work. Most of the times we have not applied it. We tried gulping or digesting a big chunk without even chewing on it, and that indigestion, it bloats. So we need to break it down into chunks of digestibles and chew on it properly and work on it. And the last point is, in spite of all of this, there may be a curveball here and there where we might take a real hard fall. I call these as a true blessings, where we shouldn't take it on an egotistical standpoint. It should be that there is a huge learning that is happening because of that fall. So put the ego aside, go back with humility, try understand why it has happened, and take measures as to how you can be more careful next time that it cannot repeat itself. Maybe one more last point. Initially, when you are starting at it, the mind loves when you give it reward system. So do this task or do this particular in the new pattern and acclimatize to it. Do it for this much period or this much accomplishment or this much done, and you will give yourself a 5-minute break, walk around, come back again, or give yourself a candy or a chocolate, or a 2-minute video, watch a shorts, you watch it, take a break, something where the mind is rewarded, and then you get back to the task again. For a period, then it will not become necessary, it will become redundant, but that can also be one of the methods implemented. ठीक? Hariom.
Yeah.
So we have another question that has been asked. Let me ask the questioner to ask it himself.
How do you? So when making attempts to practice Vairagya and to exert control over our equipment, there may be times where those close to us question these changes in our lifestyle, because things will be different. Normal patterns will not be followed. People will take notice, especially those who are close to us. So if they ask for an explanation, how was that explanation given without sounding pretentious or holier than thou? And this question came from a CHYK in a recent group, saying that you as a brahmachari wearing the cloth, you won't, just by virtue of that, you won't find yourself in certain situations where people will try to thrust things on you that you don't want to do when you're trying to change your patterns. As CHYKs, we don't have that luxury. And how do we get across without offending them and sounding very pretentious in that practice?
So on the sideline, therefore wearing this cloth, when many people ask, right? So why a cloth? Can't you just practice it just because? Just wearing it, there are situations that can be easily avoided, which will aggravate things. So that is one on the sideline. Now, when you are trying to change these patterns, and you're trying to observe it yourself. See, most of the times when you're practicing it yourself, the objections or the questions will not come. Oh, I'll take several scenarios. One of the scenario that I would look at is when initially we are so inspired that it is not yet reflecting in our thought, word, or deed, but we have a surge of inspiration because of the new idea, new conviction, and I'm so convinced of it. So I run around telling everybody and anybody without having that change in me, trying to tell them to change, force it on them. So when that happens, then you are put on you're cornered with it. They're saying, "No, stop acting up. We see that you, and with you going and doing all of this, still have this. I am better off without any such satsang or sadhana or such retreats and camps and things like that." So this innate habit of the individual mind to go around, try impress others and tell them or force upon them the change, that which you are convinced of recently, then there is that resistance and it gets thrown back at you. You are not holier than, just be where you are, and they'll try to put you in your place. Now the second is, all of this has to be applied in utmost humility. When we are applying it for oneself, it is to be applied with utmost humility, in a sense others need not know what you are doing. Therefore, most of the times when the sadhana is prescribed, they say do it in seclusion, to a point where they say do it in secrecy. People have given too much of importance to secrecy and not the purpose as to why that. It is not that method is secret or something, though there is a slight reason for that as well, but more from the standpoint that it is for us to humbly practice whatever I am doing and not to be a show off. Those who start into this practice where there are 10 people walking in and out, and that is where they'll put the mat up and then sit down and then do Om, and you don't need to be seeking any attention. It should be in your privacy, and do it in that privacy, and the sadhana is supposed to be done that way. Which you have asked in your question as puja, japa, dhyana, yaga, ityadi, various. Is that your question only, right? No, this is a different question. Okay, the question has it changed. So the lifestyle, when you're making changes, make it when you're convinced in smaller portions, and not as trying to force that lifestyle onto others. Each one is entitled. It may be your own family, it may be in your own immediate, to sometimes contradicting completely on the other side. One recent example that I can think of is after coming to the sadhana, and this person changed the entire lifestyle to be a vegetarian. For several years since birth, they've been non-vegetarian and shifted. So first they thought, it is just a new fever, new kind of a fervor, and it'll wean away. When it was not done, so it was first mocked at, and then there were a lot of pressure techniques to entice them with their old habits. And when it did not, they come to a point where they see it that this is not just a flimsy pattern, but they are really convinced of it, and they start respecting it. Even if there is somebody who inadvertently gives that older environment or talks about it, they said, let them be. They will stand up for them, though they themselves may not, but out of that respect they will, because you are not forcing it on them. When you put that pressure that I have changed, so therefore everybody has to change, that is where the most of the confusion comes in. If that can be avoided, I think 80-90% of our problems are resolved there. Does that answer your question somewhere?
Yes, Swamiji, thank you.
Okay. Let us put Siddharth.
హరి ఓం స్వామిజీ.
Hari Om. బాగున్నారా?
బాగున్నాను, మీరు ఎలా ఉన్నారు?
శుభ దీపావళి. నేను బాగున్నాను.
శుభాశయ.
So go ahead, ask your question.
My first question is based off the introduction Swamiji had just given for Deepavali. And so the mention was that Sri Ramachandra et al. Had returned to Ayodhya on the Deepavali day. Then I'm curious, why was the wait for the Pattabhishekam until Chaitra Shukla Navami, like Ramanavami, much later, I guess like 5-6 months down the road? Was there any particular reason or for that wait, or was that more than 1 year plus that 6 months difference? I don't remember.
It was 6 months, 5 to 6 months period, not 1.5 year. See, when such a big institution of the Samrajya, he was the emperor, there are a lot of wheels that have to be moved in place to create that environment for him to be coronated. And the second is that, according to Vasishtha ji, was the best muhurta according to Ramchandra ji's Janma Kundali. So both of those, like, when there is the old president leaving the office, the new president coming in, it is not like everything is done on the same day or within, it takes time. The transition period takes time. So he coming back, there is a lot that had to be shifted from Nandigam to Ayodhya because Bharatji was staying there, and then getting everything in Ayodhya in proper order. Then the news has to go across to everybody that now Ramji is there, he is being anointed, and there will be this process, and then the announcement has to go out. Everybody, there should not be any challenge left. And after the coronation, to prove that point, there was the Ashwamedha Yaga also, which was challenged by his own sons. Those are the only ones that challenged him. But there are so many Rajyanga, the different limbs of the Rajya and its way of functioning that have to be put in place, without which that coronation would not have been a successful one. So therefore, with those 2 pointers, I think they had to wait.
Quick follow-up to that question. Then the Ashwamedha Yaga happened much after the Pattabhishekam then, right?
Yes. Because after having become the Samrat, you have to know your army. You have to know your people. You have to know your people, the people in the country. So you have to do a lot of traveling, lot of sitting down with people, knowing them, putting things in order. Though Bharata was an able administrator, but it was now that people have to see his face, recognize and know that yes, it means serious business now. So that time was necessary for it to be put in place.
Understood. Thank you. And my second question I'd ask is, would Swamiji please explain how the different modes of sadhana, whether it's japa, puja, dhyana, yaga, whichever, how do they relate to / lead to each of the lakshanas that we talked about in this chapter, like the Shatka Sampatti and etc.?
It is Shatka Sampatti. See the correlation between these different practices and the Shatka Sampatti may not be directly seen. So I would not put the effort of a direct correlation that do this, and for this will improve or increase. the Viveka, Vairagya, Shamadamadi, Shat Sampatti will increase only through Shravana and Satsanga. That is the Ekamatra Sadhana, where you have to begin with that. Then it is a lot of evaluation, which is called Manana. Shravana, Manana. And that is what strengthens it. Now, while that is happening on the side, the mind has to gather a sense of depth to it. That when you are now, after this, trying to face life, life will have several challenges. How do you end up facing it? Do you fret for everything that happens, or do you have the stability to see it and say, okay, this is what is happening. I did not fear or scare or run away from this. This is something that is unavoidable, will happen. Let it happen. I'll face it when it comes, as it comes. So to have that stability to understand it. Then when we are practicing the puja, japa and dhyana, now what does that do is it provides the sanctuary of peace, where the further practicing of the shamadama, uparama, titiksha, shraddha on a, and it is not just like, plugged in once and you did it once and then it is done. It is a rigor where you have to consistently keep up with it. Now, for that consistency to be maintained, one needs to have the ability, the way I would put it is, we talk about willpower. We have the will, but the power is not there. So where does that power come into that mind? Is through this puja, japa, dhyana. There are other benefits of puja, japa, dhyana, but I am not bringing those things in. So that power into our sankalpa comes from this puja, japa, dhyana. Now practices like dana and various other charity and other things is to remind us that we are the ones serving, and anybody that is being served by us is verily the form of that Pratyaksha Bhagavan in front of us. So to bring that aspect of humility as a constant practice, that here is Bhagavan, I am his dasa. Here is my Ishta, I am his bhakta. So that constantly to be inculcated, not just limited to the puja, japa, dhyana, where I am trying to practice in one particular form, to expand it from that form to the entire interactive world that I am engaged in. So to expand it, the dana karma or the yaga karma, because yaga involves having all of these aspects embedded in it. So that's how it becomes a feedback loop, strengthening the shamadama, uparama, titiksha, and thereby the consistency for a long period until we reach to that point where now the mind can turn within. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you, Swamiji.
Very good. Anybody else has a question? Okay. If not, then I think we can.
Oh, Shivani has a question.
Where is Shivani? Oh, you raised the hand now. Thank you, Ashwin, for bringing it to my attention. Okay, where did she go? See the squares that are there, you are there once on this page, then like suddenly you're gone. I'm searching for you. There you go.
Hari Om Swamiji.
Hari Om.
Hello, Naru.
Bhavanarama. Happy Deepavali.
Happy Deepavali, Swamiji.
Go ahead.
Okay, so my question has to do with what Hariji was asking before. So, like, what about the opposite situation, Swamiji? So you're practicing sadhana and then you see yourself kind of, I guess, becoming more secretive about it, but then you are now involved in a group of friends that's
I would still insist not secretive about it, but more
secret.
seclusion.
Okay,
Secluded.
secluded about it. And now you have a group of friends that are similar, and or you're in an environment where people are similar to you, but it starts to become a matter of comparison between people, and you start to see this arrogance creep up. It's the opposite situation.
Arrogance creep up in you because of the comparison?
Sure.
No, I'm trying to understand. Is that what you meant?
Because it becomes a matter of comparison between everyone in the group. Yes.
You and the fellow sadhakas.
Yes.
Everything else in the world is compare, compete, confuse. But sadhana is you battling it out with yourself. It has got absolutely nothing to do with anybody from the outside. And the person in the spiritual realm will dive down to that, stoop down to that lower aspects of mind only if we see it as an external pompous show that I also do, I am also a sadhaka, I have also this, and hence therefore create that competition. So suppose anybody would say, hey, how many malas do you do japa? I would say, by God willing, sometimes I'm able to sit and do, and thankfully it happens most of the times, and remove the pressure of trying to give the scope for competition or any kind of arrogance, anything to come into picture. Nullify the very pressure of that question. Am I getting across? Because that is not the intent of sadhana. And if that becomes the intent, then the same worldliness has creeped into the so-called spiritual practices or the adhyatmika sadhana, where try practicing it for next 20,000 years or 20,000 lives, you will still be there in the same position as you were always. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, we will then wind up.
Swamiji, there's a question in the chat.
I don't see it. Other than your question, I don't see anything.
I think Shiv had a question.
Yeah, I answered him saying that. Yeah, I answered him on a personal note saying this is not the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, so I'll take it up with him on a one-on-one later. Right, Shiv? You're cool with that? Okay. He gave me a thumbs up. I'll give him a Fanta.
Yes.
ठीक है. So, if nothing else, okay, good. ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्. असतो मा सद्गमय, तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय, मृत्योर्मा अमृतङ्गमय. ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते, पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः. हरिः ॐ. Take care, everyone. Have a great week ahead. See you in the next satsang with our questions to you. So come prepared. Shiv, you will not be excused. You should be joining in, trying to answer them. Hari Om.